Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Tamer Cardcast. This is Zach.
I'm Marina.
And today we're going to be discussing our impression of the best cards from the trial decks. And then we'll start touching on the first booster set, New Evolutions. And then we're kind of thinking about talking about our predictions for the upcoming set 2, Ultimate Power, based on the reveals we've been seeing lately.
There's been some pretty exciting stuff, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So for the trial decks, what I wanted to start with was what we thought were the best cards. And after our testing, and we kind of came down to that our favorite cards are the 3 high-cost option cards: Cocytus Breath, Terra Force, and Seven Heavens.
At first, I was very questionable about Seven Heavens being in the deck that I was using, but at the end, it actually is extremely strong because it's versatile and allows you to fight larger Digimon, which I noticed Yellow has a hard time when it comes to being able to kill basically Digimon that combo on you, like Omnimon and things like that. And also in green, that's a big thing, is being able to have proper removal so you don't basically get outmatched. Because once they start building their walls, it's really difficult.
Yeah, and then from testing, Cocytus Breath is insane. Every blue deck loves Cocytus Breath. It can just stop Megas and even Omnimon in his tracks just because you discard everything under it. So the only deck that sometimes has a good recovery from that is Yellow, just because they have on-place ultimates that you want on-place. So that big mana swing can kind of generate a new Seraphimon the next turn or a new Slosh-Angemon. But sometimes you got to play that risk.
I think it's worth it, though, because I've seen several games where you've managed to actually beat me and sway the entire game based on that, because if your hand is like full of large Digimon, you can't always afford to keep slapping stuff down. So it's one of those things where if it dejects one of the Digimon, it's really, really worth it.
Yeah, and then likewise with Seven Heavens, when we were testing Yellow against like green and red, the biggest problem was the number, the Polyphony -7k rare. Just really couldn't get the job done. When you're playing against like Grand Kuwagamon, Rosemon, stuff like that, you really have to have the proper setup for the rare removal spell to be worth it. Whereas the Seven Heavens, even though it's 7 mana, which is kind of, it's a lot, especially if you're playing against like blue or something like that, it really lets you fight the Megas on the board a lot more easily. It lets you kind of combo certain minus effects. And basically just be this big turn-ending play that lets you just wipe away your opponent's giant threat.
I agree with that. I think it's also one of the only ways to really stop Omnimon in Yellow, because we don't have a unit that is nearly as large as him. Green can make up for theirs because it's Grand Kuwagamon, right?
Yeah, with Grand Kuwagamon, since he attacks for 15k on his own, and then all your source effects could make him even bigger than Omnimon.
So exactly, that's the big thing. So they can compensate for that. But Yellow doesn't have a unit that's like that. We have units that can build up, but it's nowhere near that. So I think being able to actually have proper removal.
Yeah, swinging past like 12, 13k, even if you're playing like the Gatomon promo, you combine like Gatomon and Holy Angemon, I don't see Seraphimon attacking for more than like 14k. Unless you're playing the trial deck one, and then you could probably kill an Omnimon with enough buffs.
It's also an extremely rare case in which you would need that anyways, because there are games where there's obviously high Digimon insecurity, but even at that point, like Metal Garurumon, if I'm correct, that's 11k, right?
Yeah, most Megas are 11k, so a lot of the time Seraphimon is not scared of anything that's in your opponent's security.
Well, if you have Holy Angemon inside of it, then it really does
it goes up to 12k. In a lot of games. That does require 6 security to hit 12k.
But it's not that difficult if you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, a lot of times the first Seraphimon is a big attacking for 12k with security attack.
We should probably also discuss Terra Force.
Yeah, Terra Force in red. The only thing about Terra Force that I'm not a huge fan of is that it's 8 mana instead of the 7 for the other two. Whereas Terra Force is inherently more powerful of a card. When I play red, Terra Force clogs my hand. But at the same time, there's nothing that rivals Terra Force. It kills anything and everything.
It literally just destroys anything. It's a fantastic card, and I think I understand the trade-off of getting that extra the extra memory cost on it.
Yeah,
that outweighs the 7, but it's because of the fact that it's nothing is essentially impervious to that.
Yeah, and obviously you like for all of these cards, most you're gonna run 4 of them if you're including them in your build, just so that you can actually see them in security. Their security effects are all just activating their main effect during your opponent's turn. So normally either you can kill an attacker. If their Digimon is an ultimate or a mega that's small enough, with 7 heavens, you just kill them sometimes. Terraforce, I've killed plenty of megas from the security. And Cocytus Breath, normally I use Cocytus Breath a little bit more tempo-y, just bouncing either blockers or further attackers, because I think
it works that way. It helps stall the game essentially, or while putting it in your favor, because you can get something off their board.
Yeah, the biggest problem in blue from my playing is sometimes you just get out aggroed and you don't really have a great answer for it sometimes. You can try and play the board, but your units are small. The aggro blue deck maxes out at like 6k on defense a lot of the times. So Cocytus Breath really helps with those big units.
I think it also is... I think it's all part of a balancing act, because if you've noticed, you can obviously play big blue, or you can also play large red. And I think obviously those follow what's in their name, but I think it makes sense because in like Rookie Rush and things like that, you have a lot of units out, but there also has to be a way to stop that, because as you saw without the abilities, even in yellow, is able to call things at the start of one game and be able just to plow security.
Yeah, what I've really started to find with cards like Cocytus Breath is if you can use them and try not to play into an opponent's big like on-place Digimon, especially against yellow, then that's the mana break you want to hit. Sometimes you don't have that option. Sometimes it's an oh shit button that you gotta hit and save yourself. And there's plenty of games where Cocytus Breath has won me the game, and I would have died otherwise.
Yeah, agreed. I remember one game where it was the last point in your security and it actually saved you.
Yeah, a lot of times Cocytus Breath can either keep you from any of these cards. Any of these cards can keep you from dying the turn that you would die. Obviously, that's very lucky, but it's just the reality of running them. There's almost nothing like them in when it comes to security effects, except for maybe like Flow Cannon.
Well, I think that's also important to note when we discuss, say, Seven's Heaven versus the other 5-cost option card.
Yeah, the option card has the number 1 Polyphony does not have a security effect.
There's no security effect, so it makes it extremely difficult, because I've noticed when I was playing that over Seven Heavens that there'd be a lot of games where I'm just flipping it and it just goes into the trash.
Yeah.
And it would do absolutely nothing. It wouldn't progress the game or actually sway it in any way.
Yeah, it's a big thing with option cards that I'm starting to feel when you playtest a lot. Option cards without security effects are a little oof when they're in your security, because it's basically free damage. Even rookies can trade with other rookies in the security and have some value. The no security option cards just feel bad.
It really brings it to the point where it's different when you hit a Tamer and the Tamer doesn't kill the Digimon, because you get value out of that trade anyways, because you can still have it on there and you get use of it for the next turn. But when it comes to those option cards, it doesn't feel like it outweighs the bad parts of it, because a lot of the time you're just flipping it and putting it in the trash, like I said, and it doesn't really change the game.
Yeah, but most of those option cards are pretty low costed, so there is a cost benefit to that. But as we've been testing, just these expensive option cards have really pressed out a lot of other options.
I think they're definitely important. There was a lot of lists at the start of the game that we saw that played the lower cost.
Yeah, for yellow.
Exactly, and I definitely can see the mindset behind that, and it's by no means bad, but I definitely like the high cost more, because even though it is more expensive to place down, it still is usable when placed down, and you still feel the incredible impact of it.
Yeah, it normally outside of if you really expect a lot of aggro blue where units don't get above 6k, that's probably the only time I would build your deck with the number 1 Polyphony at this point. I think Big Red is really popular right now, and Seven Heavens is really needed against that, and also in your green matchup. In testing, Yellow has a rough time against green if green gets set up.
Yeah, it's probably the most difficult matchup for yellow, we've determined. We've switched builds for green and yellow, and it's still a very challenging battle usually when you play against each other.
When we've been even flexing our decks around how the games have gone out and making some changes and stuff like that. Green and yellow, 7 heavens is needed to even bring that to like a 60-40 sometimes. It can still be pretty rough.
It can still be rough, yeah, even with 7 heavens, just because they reach such high numbers.
Yeah. So moving on from those, the next 3 cards that I wanted to talk about are the other 2 of option cards in the decks. Giga Blaster, the red, destroy 2 Digimon with DP 4000 or less. Kaiser Nail, playing one of your source evolutions onto the board for 4 mana. And Holy Flame, this one's a little awkward. I've seen people testing it, and I think it has some applicability depending on your opponents, but Holy Flame, -3 security attack from one of your opponent's Digimon. Really good against Restanders, really good against Metal Greymon.
I think it holds a lot of value. I think the only thing is it definitely falls a little bit short against green, in my opinion, because of the fact that even despite the piercing, even though the pierce will not occur, like it won't do anything to your security, it still gets rid of your Digimon, which is already enough a detriment to it. So
yeah, green really playing the field controls kind of makes Holy Flame a little bit iffy. And sometimes your opponent just won't have a good target for it.
But there's also extremely good cases in which, like, say, Metal Greymon, where you're able to play it because he swings for such a high number of security that you can completely cancel it.
It basically makes him useless for a turn and maybe opens up the option to wait for, like, a 7 heavens on the next turn. Let's not focus too much on Holy Flame, though. My favorite one of these, with the new yellow build list that was talked about earlier today in a couple places, Kaiser Nail, being able to replay your Holy Angemons or your Mistymons from underneath the Seraphimon in the blue-yellow hybrid sounds like a silly gimmick, but it's actually kind of nuts.
It's definitely good, because a lot of the time you need to actually evolve, but you can't get those effects off because you feel like the draw engine is more important because you're lacking cards in your hand. So I can definitely see the worth of it, but my only issue is I can't really vouch for the consistency of it since I haven't tested it.
Yeah, it's kind of just been going on other people's testing and word of mouth, and just a little bit of theory crafting. It seems like this crazy combo that you can try, but from what people have been saying, it has issues against non-aggro decks just because it really is such a mana-intensive idea. But for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, the blue-yellow hybrid is a combination of a low-level blue deck, basically just the very generic, like the Tamers, the Rookies, the Champions, and they play Cockatous Breath in there too, to activate the ability for you to play Kaiser Nail. Kaiser Nail is 4 mana, play one of your evolution sources, and then the yellow part of the deck is 4 Holy Angemon and 4 Mistymon, and then a combination of Seraphimons and Angemons. So basically that means that all of your yellow ultimates, while they are 7 mana, get some crazy value because you basically hope, if you're lucky, you get to double play them, you drop Holy Angemon the turn before, you recover 1. You pass turn because normally that costs 7, and your turn's over. Hopefully your opponent doesn't have a way to kill it. Most blue and red decks aren't really going to have a good way to interact with a 6k Digimon.
Usually in best case scenario.
Yeah, green might be a little iffy on that, why this list might not be great against green. And then if the next turn goes, you have like 3 mana, let's say, you can Digivolve into Seraphimon or Angemon, get the value on the on-evolution skill, and then play attack, do what you need to, and then play Kaiser Nail for 4 to end your turn, and that lets you pull out Mistymon or Holy Angemon and re-get their on-place effects.
I think there's extreme potential in that. It just comes down to the fact that, once more, I have not personally tested it, so I can't really attest to it.
Yeah, I think that is definitely an idea that could have some consistency issues, just because the hybrid really only exists for Kaiser Nail. And then, not to really short sell Giga Blaster, but unless you're playing a format where people are really playing Rookie Rush, Giga Blaster just clogs your hands sometimes.
Are we still seeing Rookie Rush?
The most recent tournament didn't seem to have a lot of Rookie Rush in it. I didn't get to watch the full VOD from the London Players Guild tournament over the weekend. which is our main source at this point of what the NA players are really going. Not NA, excuse me.
Just the general community,
international community is really playing. Because we're not getting much out of Japan.
Well, that's the main spot for the metagame right now because they're holding. There's no way to really hold official tournaments right now, I believe.
I don't think so.
But this is probably the most official as we can get right now because they actually go ahead and do prize support.
Yeah, there's prize support, so there's actually incentive to really build a good deck and get going. It's not just for fun, testing and stuff like that. So yeah, Giga Blaster, destroying 2 Digimon with 4,000 DP. Obviously really good against Rookie Rush, but in most games it's just kind of clunky. Killing one rookie sometimes just feels really bad. Moving on from option cards, there's a good list of Digimon. We've gone ahead and picked out 2 from each color. I'm going to start with red, and it's the Agumon and Greymon combination. Now, Agumon is a really basic card. It's just plus 1,000 DP. What Agumon really does is it's your third Agumon in your red evolution list to have a source for the promo Greymon to be as broken as possible. Giving him plus 1,000 DP and the plus 1 security attack from his own effect is really good.
Also like to point out that since they were in the trial deck, they avoid the tax.
Yeah, they do. They only cost 0. They're 3 mana, 0 cost Digivolution. There's nothing really special, but the fact that it has its name Agumon, and they didn't make its Digivolution cost 1 means you're going to play it as a 3 or 4 of. And then my second one in red is the Champion Greymon with Source Effect, Security Attack plus 1. I can't tell you how crazy this... I can't explain just how crazy this card is sometimes. If you really get going in red, going first or second, sometimes your opponent just can't contest anywhere from Security Attack 2 all the way to Security Attack 4 attack on your second turn.
It's absolutely insane. I've seen really crazy plays come out of that basically almost... It's one of those things that comes close to being able to end the game depending on how it works.
Yeah, Metal Greymon is a very high-risk, high-reward secret rare. We'll touch on him a little bit more later. But the Trial Deck Greymon lets him, Garudamon, even Skull Greymon, which some decks are playing, just get as much value as possible from the turn they're played. And if you still have mana after that, you can rotate into something else like a War Greymon or a Phoenixmon. And Phoenixmon at 12k with Security Attack plus 1 is also pretty nasty.
I mean, I believe red did need something like that because I believe red is the next slowest deck with yellow. I think it's above yellow in speed, but I definitely believe it's slower than the other 2.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty slowed build. Unless
you can do Turbo Evolution though.
Yeah, you could do Turbo Evolution with I'm playing Dark Tyrannomon even in my big list.
It's done incredible things.
Yeah. You could really get off the ground going if you draw right. And I think red could be played like a blue deck where you're maybe focusing more on ultimates than you are on champions, with some security attack plus 1s in there and really get the game just going and fast. But it's still going to be slower than blue and green. Those decks just get off the ground and go really fast. Moving on to yellow.
All right, so Andrew Woman, there's a lot of things to talk about basically for this card. So not only can she heal, which is really, really strong value in that because healing is one of the better ways to actually unbrick during games because your opponent will go ahead and attack your security and usually, depending on what you play in your build, it'll enable you to let them just die and open up holes for you later. But besides just the healing, I would like to point out that she is a 6 cost.
Yeah, so her 6 cost means that she's actually really easy to play on turns in response to an opponent's big removal card. In a lot of games against Cocytus Breath, Terra Force, or an opponent's 7 Heavens, they'll take you to 6. Andrew Woman can bring you to 0, and then you can go from there with a Seraphimon or something like that.
Usually I like to use the combination with /Angemon because since you cannot attack, you want to have some kind of board impact to disrupt them. So I like to play that if you do have it in your hand, that is. Yeah. So that way you can usually kill something on their board, so that way you're not as in much trouble for the next turn.
Yeah, she really puts in the work, and then there's a lot of games where you get 2 attacks in, and the security was really bad for you, for the player attacking yellow, that is. your board's gone just because there was 2 big security Digimon in there, and then your opponent slaps down Angelomon, and they're back and forth security, and you're crying.
Yeah, it definitely feels like an oof is what I'm seeing when I end up healing. Especially, it's funny because she sways the game, so you can actually heal back up, and then you can use other high-cost Digimon to just actually keep increasing. Because she does have a cap to a point where you can only heal during certain conditions.
Yeah, she can only heal on evolution if you're at 3 or less 3 or less security, excuse me. But that's a pretty fast point to get to if you're against like blue especially. But blue also has a knack for killing its own Digimon on your security Digimon when you're playing yellow. So.
I think its biggest weakness in regards to killing itself is Vidramon is 6k.
Yeah,
and that's definitely a weak.
Yeah, without the jump Tamer bringing him to 7k or Hellfire / Emerald Fire for English players, bringing him up even higher. Sometimes he just kills himself. It's just the reality of restanding.
It just comes down to the choke point. Restanding really can obviously the first one doesn't, it resolves itself and then you're fine, but you never really know what could come next is the big point. And you could also be stopped in your tracks by the first security point, which could completely just make your play not worthwhile.
Yeah, and then the next yellow card that we want to touch on is the Trial Deck Seraphimon.
Seraphimon is actually a fantastic tech in my opinion. He's very high cost, but being able to do minus 4k on attack opens it up so you can actually have your other Digimon, depending on their DP value, to clear board, or you can use him, swing, give him negative 4k, and you can just bap them out of the way.
Yeah, you can kill Megas with Trial Deck Seraphimon. He's really good. I think the only card over 14k, over 11k, excuse me, is over 12k. Most Megas are between 10 and 12k, and then Omnimon sits at 15. So if Seraphimon's negative 4 and him being 10k himself, he kills almost any other Mega on attack if they're tapped, and let's be real, most Megas are going in because they're not scared of security Digimon.
No, and I definitely think that's the point where he's strong. And I believe he's also on, you can even just have him without being on evolution. He can just be on.
Yeah, he can be by himself, which is something that's a little that yellow doesn't really have in its ultimates. Seraphimon, the set Seraphimon and /Angemon are both on evolution effects.
His second skill for the set Seraphimon is not, but being able to do the recovery is.
+1. Yeah, so the recovery +1 on set Seraphimon is on evolution. So really, you don't want to be playing those cards just down by themselves. But Trial Deck Seraphimon gives you that flexibility.
The other thing is, Omnimon is such an absolute monster. It makes sense, because I believe that's part of his benefit, because having him in the deck could either work very well, or I've seen games where it doesn't work very well. So I believe it makes sense to have him be so high, because I believe that's the kind of unit he's supposed to represent. But I do believe that Seraphimon from the Trial Deck is better than people do give it credit for, because it's so good at removal in every other aspect.
Yeah, from what I've seen, most tournament lists that actually do well with yellow definitely play Trial Deck Seraphimon. He's very good, definitely a little underappreciated. But then also in those lists, I think just the Seraphimons are underappreciated in general. As we saw in like the blue and yellow hybrid list, we're starting to see higher counts of set Seraphimon with the still 2 Trial Deck Seraphimon, because they're both insane.
We tested numbers. We went from 1, we went to 2, and then we went to 3, and then today we actually got all the other ones that came in the mail officially, so we could stop proxying. We played with a full 4 of BT01 Seraphimon, and it made a very large difference in the games. He really does apply that pressure, and being able to swing for 2 security is basically insane in yellow, since you have nothing else that can actually do that and provide that aggression, and that really does give you that extra push to sway the game.
Yeah. So yeah, the Seraphimon from the Trial Deck, great inclusion. Moving on to blue. Blue is a little more oof, if I'm honest. The Trial Deck cards that aren't vanilla, I'm going to put this out there, we saved blockers and vanillas for last, just because they're just going to get a quick mention. For blue, I picked Metal Garurumon as my first choice. Only really in big blue. He's not my favorite card. He has 4 evolution cost. But a Mega that can restand gives zero fucks about your opponent's security. And even then you can attack with Metal Garurumon. He restands, play Omnimon. This is assuming a lot of mana, of course, is open. Play Omnimon. Omnimon can attack, bounce Metal Garurumon to hand, Omnimon restands, and then Omnimon attacks again. It's a crazy combo that requires 6 memory on the turn that you do it, and Metal Garurumon to already be on the board for the most part. But it can be done.
There are ways to do it because you can actually heighten your memory with your Tamer cards.
Yeah, Blue has a lot of increasing in memory in its lists. But Big Blue does kind of have to skip on those sometimes. So there's not a lot of potential for it. And really, Metal Garurumon doesn't have. There's not much to say. He's solid, but he's not a fantastic. My second call for Blue when it comes to the Digimon is the Garurumon. I think this card's a little undervalued. I can see why he gets pushed out by the promo Garurumon, just because that card has 2 effects, so it's just better, and it still gives the security attack +1 if you're drawing enough cards. But Garurumon's effect is in source. If your opponent has a Digimon with no evolution sources, it's +1 security attack, which Blue just doesn't really have +1 security attack outside of the 2 Garurumons. So
it's a fantastic budget option, absolutely, because not everyone's going to be able to.
Yeah.
Especially right now with the cost of cards, because the set is out of print until July. Yeah. It really depends on whether you're able to pick it up.
Well, so he's a good budget for if you can't get your hands on the set. He's also a good budget if you want to play Garurumon and you can't get your hands on promo Garurumon. Some English players are selling some of these promos in the States, but otherwise paying for DHL for a couple promos is kind of oof. You know, it is a lot for shipping. So obviously, like if you're looking to make a budget deck to play with your friends, assuming that you have friends that you're hanging out with during Corona, then Garurumon's a good option for a budget build. But there's not really much else to talk about for him. And then closing out the trial decks, in my opinion, the big winners of the trial decks when it comes to Digimon are the vanillas. The vanillas are making a huge impact all over the place. Phoenixmon is at a 4 of in some Omnimon lists. Gomamon, Biomon.
He's actually quite incredible because he's 12k base.
Yeah, Phoenixmon being 12k base but digivolving for 2 and only costing 10 means Phoenixmon is probably the biggest thing on the board and is hard to remove.
He's definitely hard because you have to, even when using Seven's Heaven, where it's minus 10k,
you still either have to
swing.
Have a way to attack it after paying 7 mana, or you have to have already subtracted from it and then play 7 Heavens, which, you know, training those 2 effects isn't exactly super difficult, but it requires a lot of memory to kill a Phoenixmon,
which is the most difficult part.
Yeah,
it's sturdy. It's a sturdy Digimon.
Yeah, and just, you know, the vanillas are just the vanilla rookies are 2 cost, 0 evolution, 3Ks. What really makes them good is the 2 cost. There's a lot of situations where you can play a 2 cost and then still digivolve. Even with some of the cheaper vanilla champions from the set, that only you can digivolve to a champion for 3 mana and then either still play an ultimate or still play an option removal card or something like that. And it really gives you a lot of options still.
The blockers are also amazing just because of the fact that I believe only Blue got one within the set.
Yeah, so the 3 blockers are a mandatory 4 of in all decks at this point, from what I've seen. I can't even think of a list where they don't play 4 blockers in their respective colors. So a trial deck is a must for every single build in the game right now. I guess except for maybe Rookie Rush. I never really think about Rookie Rush.
The other thing to think about is I believe that you get a lot of cards that you can use from the trial deck, and I believe it's just important to be able to have a play set of those cards on hand for when you're deck building.
Yeah, this isn't to discount anything else in the trial decks. There's a lot of options that they open up that get for creative deck building.
The game is new, so there's a lot of things people have yet to explore.
Yeah.
So there's always room to explore and create new decks.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the option cards from set 1 and the option cards from the trial decks, there's a lot of things that people haven't touched yet really in their builds. And that, you know, that might be just because that the powerful cards push them out. But they could be good later. I don't think any of these effects are inherently any of the option cards especially are inherently bad. Some of the Digimon are just not great for their cost, but you never know what could happen.
The blockers are always just essential. That's just the main thing I believe that we want to get out of this, is putting that apart from the vanillas. It's very hard to run blockers and still neg yourself, in my opinion, because someone could swing for 3 security or things like that, and you could apply.
Yeah, even just chump blocking your opponent's giant unit is still worth the 2 to 5 mana sometimes.
Even losing the body on the board, there's no way that even compares to being able to block something like that.
Yeah, blockers are just a huge way to tempo and board control, and they could almost be at the top of this list for best cards from the trial decks. They'll have impact in the meta for as long as they don't give us new blockers. Oh, do you have something?
Well, I'm just curious when considering blockers, because who knows how many else they can add, and I'm also curious to see if they add blockers with effects.
Yeah, so the one thing from the trial deck blockers is they have -2 memory when they attack. That's trying to kind of keep them in line, maybe incentivize people that don't know so much better to not attack with them as much, and just their overall power level means that they do need to be reined in a bit. I think Blue's little monkey, who's a 1k 4 cost blocker rookie, is pretty good. He's not seeing a lot of play just this moment, but he could be included in the future as a good tempo option. You probably play him in Rookie Rush just because he doesn't have the -2 memory effect on attack.
Well, it makes sense because his DP is so low, and it is like you said, there's also high value in chump blocking.
Yeah, he's purely a chump blocker, but I am curious to see how they do black. Black is going to really give us the answer to what happens when you have blockers with effects.
That's the one thing I'm really curious about, because we don't really... Have they specified on how they're going to do that?
No, they're black. They literally just... all the really info we know from about black is from the sales sheet that was leaked.
See, I'm just curious to see if we're going to get almost 2 times as many blockers in that deck than we do in the other decks, or if we're going to get things with effects that, under certain conditions, give them blocker. It's up in the air.
Yeah, and the blocker give effects that are currently in the game in red and I think red and yellow have 2 option cards that give blocker. They're just so expensive, and they basically just put a big target on your Digimon's back. I haven't seen anyone playing with them yet.
That doesn't mean they're bad, but the other thing to consider is we feel like there's a lot more value right now in the metagame, so to say, because things are so aggressive. Being able to give a negative DP or just reduce them, so that way you can get them off the board, is so much more higher value than, say, being able to add blocker, in which you, at that point, you might almost just be trading, or it might be pointless.
Yeah, the 2 blocker option cards are... The yellow one is only 3 mana, which isn't super expensive. The red one is 5 mana, since it untaps your Digimon. That is a little bit better in my opinion, but they're so expensive. I'm not a huge fan of them. And there's just not effects outside of like Leomon and stuff like that really trigger on your opponent's turn.
I gotta say, I really do appreciate Leomon, even though I don't play blue, because that Digimon finds a way to die over different media. It's like he dies in the games, he dies in the anime. I think I saw a compilation 2 days ago where I think he died about 12 times, and I killed him again tonight, and really I don't really see how he keeps coming back. This poor man, they just keep letting him get shot down.
Yeah, he really provides a lot of value to everyone that is involved with him, and then he dies. Alright, moving on from there, we're going to touch on the Super Rares and Secret Rares from Set 1, Ultimate Evolution. We're going to kind of go into a color order, so we're going to start with red. We're going to start with Garudamon, a 7k Ultimate card. Digivolution cost for 3. He has jamming, and then his source effect is not jamming, excuse me. He has piercing, and then his source effect is when this Digimon is blocked. Obviously, when you're on a Mega, you get to draw 1 card. Garudamon's just kind of like a mandatory 3 of at this point.
Just a good card.
Yeah, he's just very solid. A very solid ultimate. Red's ultimates are a little bit hit or miss. I think Garudamon is by far just the easiest, like the one that you always want to play in your deck.
I agree with that.
Yeah, there's not really much to say about Grudemon. In a piercing deck, he is very strong because you can play like Baby Dramon and stuff like that to really benefit piercing. But because red doesn't really have any tap effects like green does, I'm not so sure how viable those decks really are.
I think it really depends because you also have to be prepared to anticipate, rather, I guess, that there's going to be large units on the board depending on what you're playing against.
Yeah.
So it depends. And there's also the likelihood of trading, I believe. When it comes to piercing.
No, if your Digimon with piercing dies, you don't get the security.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So you really have to try to account the value and anticipate it beforehand.
Yeah, you have to. Red does have a lot of power gain effects, but red is a deck of 3+ costs a lot of the time at that point in the game. So Garudamon is solid for trading. Really good with a Greymon underneath him. But sometimes he's just he's your best ultimate choice, and you attack with him once and then you Digivolve onto him. Next we're going to go with War Greymon, the most expensive of the non-Omnimon cards and probably one of the least impactful in my opinion.
He has the tax. He basically has the Charizard tax.
He has Charizard tax basically from Pokemon. Honestly, I think War Greymon is a really interesting card. 3 mana Digivolution cost, 11 KTP. On evolution, he gains +1 security attack for the turn. And then when he attacks and checks security, option cards do not activate. So obviously that means he's very good. He's good against the big decks, the yellow evolution deck, big blue and big red, because he can't be targeted by those removal effects and stop his security checks. But then at the same time, I just feel like he gets outvalued by Phoenixmon a lot of the time.
What is your can you give an explanation behind that?
Yeah, so the big thing about red is still that all the Digivolution costs cost 3. War Greymon attacks, he can just get blocked. Obviously, sometimes he's only attacking for security attack 2. He really can be really wide or really small, but when it comes to big red decks, the problem is most of the time their goal is Omnimon in red. It just provides everything that red doesn't have, so most of the time you're just trying to get to Omnimon, and War Greymon isn't the best stepping stone for that, sadly. I think that you could play with lists that are more War Greymon focused. He could really turn the tide in games where you just get into him really fast. But I think the problem that I've seen with red is that if your opponent sees what you're trying to do and build up to War Greymon, your Digimon's either going to die or they're just going to have throwing blockers in your way to try and keep you from getting those big security attacks.
Yeah, it becomes very noticeable, and there's a target on the Digimon essentially, so you can stop that growth.
Yeah, anytime red is looking to go to Mega, you're immediately, if you leave an ultimate on the board on your opponent's turn, there's a big red target on its back. And then the other problem is if you're going from champion to Mega in one turn in red, you basically have to do Phoenixmon in most turns. Otherwise, your turn's going to end when you hit Mega, and then War Greymon's value is just lost.
Of course, this also varies depending on how much memory that they gave you, but there's no way to actually anticipate that since it really is game dependent.
Yeah, I think War Greymon's problem is that unless you're playing against an opponent that's really giving you a lot of memory, he can be really difficult to get down in a good situation. Moving on to blue, Zudomon, probably one of my favorite SRs that I'm playing with. He's just extreme value on Digivolution. Draw 2 cards. So basically, he's found his way into almost every blue deck as a 3 or 4 of.
You essentially draw 3 from him.
Draw 3.
You just plus 3.
Draw 3 with a 6k ultimate that costs 3 to Digivolve is fantastic. I'm actually forgetting his evolution, his source effect right this moment. Let me look that up.
Right there.
When attacking, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution sources, it gets +1 memory. That's good. I mean, there's never a bad time for you to get +1 memory. I do think that +1 memory effects on your turn are most valuable in blue, so this card could really give you a lot of space to work with.
I agree with that. It allows you to really place down other units also.
Yeah.
So that we can keep aggro going.
He's really good at being the enabler for you to flood the board. A lot of times I slap down a Zudomon, not care what happens from him from then on out, because he's at the peak for a blue aggro deck. And then you just flood the board with units because you now have just all these cards in hand that you can start playing. Following up from that, Metal Garurumon. A card that I undervalued at first, but as I played around with Big Blue, my favorite thing to do with Metal Garurumon is just calling a blocker out of his evolution sources.
I think that is quite literally the highest value, just because it enables you have an attacker off of him, and then you also get a blocker, so there's just a lot of versatility involved.
Yeah, it's a really good way to turn like a turn where you only have like 3 mana into a good tempo turn. Let's say the situation that I would give is you put a blocker out for turn 1. It's a pretty common play. You go rookie blocker pass turn. If your opponent gives you 3 mana at that next turn, you can move it out, Digivolve into Zudomon, draw 3 cards, then Digivolve into Metal Garurumon and call out the blocker and pass turn, and that's just amazing tempo in my opinion. And then Metal Garurumon is also a pretty common step to Omnimon. Just because once you've played Metal Garurumon, all he really is an 11k body, which is always good because they're very hard to contest. But Omnimon then is the next stepping stone to controlling the game. And then also lets you reuse Metal Garurumon if you keep Digivolving. So he's kind of an enabler for good tempo in a big blue deck. Obviously, Big Blue isn't the most popular build of blue, but I think in the future, as champions get better, Metal Garurumon could see more play, especially if we get blue champions with on-place effects. I know right now I'm not running any on-place effects blue champions. I'm not even sure if there are any, honestly.
We'll talk about on-place. There's also Holy Angemon if we move to yellow.
Yeah, moving to yellow.
Where he is incredible value in my opinion, especially dependent on how much memory that you were given the turn before.
Yeah.
Or how much memory they gave you for the turn, rather.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Holy Angemon is that most of his value comes from on place, and then maybe your opponent, isn't so worried about him, but he's worth playing for 7 mana, and then that gives you a stepping stone to Seraphimon.
Exactly. So he allows you to heal, which basically, if you couldn't do a whole lot on that turn, he enables you to put him down, heal 1, which is already extremely good value in my opinion. It gives you that extra defensive option, or rather being able to stall enough so you can get to Seraphimon the next turn, which at that point you can heal again, or you can put Trial Deck Seraphimon, which both have incredible value depending on the situation.
Yeah, or even if you just need to slap down a Slash Angemon, all you've basically done is delayed your opponent a turn and then killed their unit, and you now have the upper hand, because most of the time Slash Angemon comes down and he can still attack.
Exactly. So he has that ability where he can give minus 8k, and what I usually appreciate that he can do is he can knock out a blocker,
yeah,
and then he can just go for the attack.
Yeah, so basically it means that like Holy Angemon, for the current like Digivolution yellow builds, is one of the main enablers. He's just so good just to slap down early game, going to 5 or getting back up to 5 or going up to 6 security, sometimes even going to 7 security in some games. Is super strong, and the ability to follow it up with Seraphimon is just really powerful. Moving from there, Seraphimon.
Seraphimon is actually probably my favorite card from the set. My favorite card overall, obviously, Angelman, because literally that's waifu.
Yeah.
But Seraphimon has such incredible value. Both of them do, but I definitely believe BT01 Seraphimon has a bit more value just because he heals, and then he also is the aggro engine almost outside of Tinkermon and Petermon in the yellow decks.
Yeah, Seraphimon is really just a card that is the entire powerhouse of yellow all in one, except for removal. Being able to recover, being the deck's main security attack +1 engine, just means that he's super aggressive. He's always beneficial to you. Let me go through his effect really quick. On evolution, plus recovery 1, no ifs, ands, or buts, just like Holy Angemon. And then his second effect is if you have 3 or more security, he gets security attack +1. I don't think I've ever seen a Seraphimon come down in a situation where he doesn't have security attack +1.
No.
Outside of like situations where you probably just went like late game Mistymon, Seraphimon just to try and get something good.
Exactly. A lot of the time, your game plan is to play around with your hand and the field so you can actually manipulate the game so you can get him out and you can gain that advantage. Because once you have him out, even despite not having any abilities to reduce DP, he's still an incredible Digimon because if you have Holy Angemon underneath him, it gives him that extra DP.
Either 1 or 2k normally.
It does, and that sounds small, but on something that large, it is a very big deal because if something is tapped, it gives you that chance. You already get the heal, which is strong value, and then you can still get rid of another large Digimon, which could grief you during the next turn.
Yeah, the big thing that we were seeing in yellow is that you really need to contest your opponent's megas. Just the removal suite has problems with 11 and 12Ks unless your opponent gives you a lot of mana. So Seraphimon being able to swing in for 11 or 12k on top of a Holy Angemon can help him really control your opponent's board. Or if you've gotten him down early enough, you can get a Seraphimon down on turn 2. You can just smack your opponent's ass for 2 security attack and feel like you're red.
It's incredible because he really is one of the cards that, in my opinion, keeps yellow alive as color. Because you can feel how detrimental he is when you have him in your deck when you did not have him in it before. Because we tested that during our playtesting where we tested out portions for him. And there's such large impact, you definitely have to keep him at a 4 of, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's really good at 3+. I could see situations where you don't run 4, but I think he's so high value that I like him as a 3 or a 4 of. Just any healing effect in yellow is super strong against most colors and most strategies, and then security attack +1 just helps you, get you going, and then yellow has other options to flood the board or keep going aggressive from that point on, and he really just gets you going.
Well, now we move into green. I think this is my least favorite color just because of the fact that green has such a presence on board and it's so strong. It is definitely my worst matchup.
Yeah, so her playing yellow all the time. From our testing, green just harasses yellow sometimes. My favorite thing to do in green right now is playing a Rosemon Grand Coaguan mix and just controlling your opponent's board and slamming them. But going in order here, from what I typed out, Hercules Kabuterimon, probably the only card that I actually haven't really played with yet. I'm not a huge fan of paying costs to restand, if I'm honest. But we had a misunderstanding of the rules when it comes to DP, and I think that made it where the DP interaction is you just check the 2 DPs. It's not like a subtraction or something like that from other card games. I made an assumption on when we started playing.
The first one does not subtract that Digimon attacking.
Yeah,
and the second one, it really depends because when you attack, if the first security check that you flip is actually the value enough to kill it, or it's the option card depending on what it is, that will work, and that'll actually stop the security check there.
Yeah, so the thing with Hercules Kabuterimon, let me go through Hercules Kabuterimon's effect. On attack, pay 3 memory to restand. So what that means is he also has and piercing. He is 10k, so he is the smallest of the super rare megas in the set, which makes him way more vulnerable than the rest to removal in the form of 7 heavens, to being fought, to just being attacked straight up by your opponent's megas. And I do not like paying 3 memory to restand him. What that means is you have to pay the 3 memory before the restand, or before the attack finishes. So that means that the security check could completely screw you, and really leave you with, you just paid 3 memory for nothing. And obviously that's a risk that a lot of people are willing to take. I'm seeing a lot of people are playing Hercules Kabuterimon, and I can understand why. I think he just doesn't fit my playstyle.
And I think that's another important point, is a lot of the time you have to really play into your playstyle because that is what enables you to do well in games.
Yeah, and I think green has a couple different ways to take it. Hercules Kabuterimon is really focused on being aggressive with piercing and things of that nature. But he just doesn't fit my playstyle. Moving on next, Rosemon. Rosemon might be my favorite card in the game right now, just because I like to be an asshole.
I hate that card. That and Grand Quagamon, I just cannot deal with them.
Yeah, so Rosemon's effect, she is an 11k Mega Digivolve for 3. Her effect is when your opponent's Digimon attacks, if Rosemon is rested, you rest one of your opponent's Digimon. That is just, game defining. What a lot of games come down to with Rosemon, from my testing, is your opponent normally brings you to 2, sometimes even 1 security, and then Rosemon kind of slows them down enough so that then that stops, and you can start swinging the game in your favor through attacks like Flow Cannon, Lilymon's effect, and if your opponent cannot contest your Rosemon, that's just game ending almost.
Lilymon, especially being inside there for source effects, is just
if you can combine
so
Lilymon and Rosemon, obviously the perfect combo for the evolution line. You can harass your opponent out of the game almost permanently. The only thing they can really do from then on is attacking you with their Digimon they're pulling from their raising area.
It becomes very difficult.
And even then, like, my favorite thing to do after I have Rosemon set up, if I can get a Grand Quagamon on the board to be my aggressor, I go for that. Or if I can flood the board with Woodwan. Just throw out down blockers, be like, you attack into my blockers, and then you can't attack no more.
I definitely believe... So I believe Yellow was at first supposed to be the control deck, but I definitely believe that it works better as an aggro, and Green overtook that spot.
Yeah, I think Green's field control really shows the depth of our combat system, and the just the different effects with Digivolution and draw effects. Green has amazing card advantage. It's not like Blue where it's just direct draw. It's a lot of using the Tamers to manipulate your board. Obviously, they feel situational when you read them, but having an ultimate on board in Green is no problem whatsoever. So Green just takes off, and then your Megas define the game. If your opponent cannot kill your Megas, you own the game for the rest of the game.
It's true. Once they start stacking and you're not able to actually get rid of them and provide removal, whether it be by just attacking or by option cards, it really does come to the point where you start blockading and then you cannot break past that.
Yeah, Green can put up an almost impenetrable wall sometimes, and it can be pretty hard to break when it comes to a Rosemon build. The next card, Grand Kuwagamon, the Omnimon of Green, in my opinion. 3 cost, 3 cost for Digivolution, 13 cost. Oh no, sorry, 13 cost on play, 4 cost Digivolution, 11k. By far the most expensive Mega in the set, with still an 11k body. But he has piercing, and on attack he gains plus 4,000 DP till the end of turn, making him on offense Omnimon.
It's just insane. It makes him he will not die.
Yeah, he does not. He the only cards he is contested by are Terra Force and Kagura's Breath a lot of the time.
That's what makes him such a difficult matchup for Yellow, because even if you flip those cards, you know that you actually have to spend your turn trying to get rid of him.
Yeah,
otherwise,
because if your opponent flips a 7 Heavens on a Grand Kuwagamon, you just stop. You just pause, because a lot of times you're playing Grand Kuwagamon with Dimension Scissors, so he can restand through the Dimension Scissors effect, and being able to multi-attack with Grand Kuwagamon is disgusting. And if your opponent's option cards don't kill Grand Kuwagamon, you can pause. And normally in a lot of games with Green, you're comfortable pausing, stepping back, and being like, I can. It
won't stop your aggression. That's the thing, is everything is so high in value. Once you get to that point in the game, it won't. Your aggression just won't stop.
Yeah, and it's really easy for Green to get another Mega on the board pretty quickly. It might end your turn, the next turn, but Green doesn't care about taking time. When it gets to the point where I'm comfortable just passing my turn with only taking 1 security and clearing my opponent's board, I have like 10 plus cards in hand, and sometimes my hand is bigger than my deck, so I can do whatever I want.
It's really one of the only decks that can stop bricking because of Izzy.
Yeah. Izzy and Mimi, which we will touch on probably in a future episode because we're going pretty long. They are both amazing.
They're fantastic.
They read like they would be Clunk, and they play like just beautiful cards. They're so strong. Really, your opponent has to be contesting you at any point for at every point in the game for green to not be able to use its Tamer cards.
Truly.
Next on the list of super rares, Omnimon. The big man himself. He is.
He's a mixed basket.
I think of Omnimon as a double-edged sword. Omnimon, when you get to evolve into him, can end the game. That's obviously the point of Omnimon. This big 15k attacker. Let me go through his skills. 15 cost on play, which I've paid before. 6 mana Digivolution, red or blue, so he can go into either color. On evolution, destroy one of your opponent's Digimon and all Digimon of the same name. So you yellow players out there with your Tinkermons and your Petermons, I'm coming for you.
It really, really sucks when it's happened one game, actually. Only one game to me, but it did not change how awful that felt.
Yeah, he removed 3 Petermons just because she was going for some champion rush there at the end of the game. And Omnimon just went, you see this aggression that's going to kill me? No, all in the garbage.
The game was mine until he played that card.
Yeah, Omnimon has so Omnimon's second effect, on attack, if you can return a level 6 evolution source to your hand, he then restands. So what I like to do with Omnimon is have him finish the turn to control my opponent's board. 15k is really hard to contest, obviously, like Cock at His Breath and Terraforce, as we've talked about this whole podcast, can interact with Omnimon very positively. But if your opponent is playing yellow or green, Omnimon is a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
definitely. If I get down Omnimon, I am not worried about him dying for the rest of the game, outside of really freak circumstances. And then you can even save Omnimon's restand all the way until it's just the most beneficial. Sometimes you want to use it right away, start going because you play him early enough that he needs to be your aggro piece, or he can be played late enough that he's so uncontestable that you just swing once for 15, get the security out of the way, let your opponent kind of do whatever they want, and then once you're ready to end the game, do the restand. Really, Omnimon is just a great inclusion in any big blue or red deck, and I think he'll continue to be the focus of those decks for a little while, but not, he's not exactly meta-defining at the same time.
No, he's definitely an incredible card, and I think he's a really good option to have. And I think that's what really gives red and blue the upper hand for deck building if they want to use him. But he is not also meta-defining, like you said. He's more of, I believe, like an oh shit kind of card.
Yeah, I think that red Omnimon list really has some trouble with some aggro decks and some control decks. The card does have issues with just clogging hands. You're just not able to play him in some games. I've had a game where I've had 2 Omnimons in my hand playing the Omnimon red evolution list, and sometimes he's just not great. And then basically, if you can't play Omnimon, he's clogging your hand. If you can play Omnimon, he's winning you the game. Or if you oof like me and you pay 15 mana for Omnimon, he does nothing.
And you lose, essentially, almost.
Yeah. So kind of to close out the discussion on the set for today, Metal Greymon and Veedramon are secret rares. I think Veedramon might be one of the best cards in the set, hands down. And I think Metal Greymon is a little oof.
I also want to touch on, since we are at the end almost, I do want to discuss some things that I'm hoping will show up in the next set.
All right. Well, let's go through Metal Greymon and Veedramon really quick. I'm sure most people are used to Veedramon at this point. He's been almost meta-defining. A 3 mana for evolution, 6k DP, 6 mana on place. When he attacks, if you have a blue Tamer, you can activate him for free. And his evolution source, which almost never comes into play, is if you have a blue Tamer on attack, you get plus 1k until end of turn. Obviously, the restanding is the important part. He is the cheapest restander in the game. He comes down super early. He gangbusters your opponent. And there's just situations where you can just slap down Vidramon at the end of the game. Your opponent didn't see it coming, and you win.
It's true. Vidramon can really define the game, especially at the end where it's almost like a sneak kill.
Yeah, I think the blue aggro deck would be way less powerful without him. I think blue in general would just be way less powerful without him. I can't think of a blue deck where you don't play Vidramon. Unless for some reason you'll play Tamers, which sounds insane. Next, Metal Greymon. A card that I've only just recently started testing in my red build. I put him in the Omnimon Digivolution list, and he has won me games. A 9k DP, 8 on place, 3 to Digivolve. The 3 to Digivolve is how you want to go on that one. He has security attack +2. So he has the highest base attack for security in the game, but on attack, pay 5 memory.
I call him fat ass for that reason.
Yeah. His 9k DP makes him very hard to contest. His ass is fat. He is like a nuclear bomb on your opponent's security. But paying 5 memory means some games you play him and then you can do nothing with him because any card you play from your hand will end your turn, or attacking with him will end your turn. So if you play Metal Greymon and you brick, you're going to have a rough time.
It's better to usually play out your resources beforehand, and then if you believe you can do it without giving your opponent too much memory, then swinging with him.
Yeah, I've definitely had games where I just, literally the entire game was focused on Metal Greymons, and he was able to run away with the game just because he basically, into attacks wipes away all of your opponent's security. That's on the situation that he doesn't get contested by a security Digimon a lot of the time. He's also easily blocked. He's 9k, but if you're paying 5 memory and attacking into a blocker, your opponent's going to make that trade all day. So I think Metal Greymon has some testing to do to see where he really fits in the meta. I don't see many lists with him right now. So I think that's going to continue to be an issue with Metal Greymon. I think his price comes from Greymon tax.
I definitely agree with that. I will say that out of all the alternate arts, I do believe he really got a good one.
Metal Greymon got my favorite art on any card in the game so far for the alt art. I have one in my list, and it's beautiful. I love it.
The fact that we pulled that was absolutely insane. We were in the car, and we popped the pack, and it was just really cool.
Yeah, it was I was so excited. So to close out this episode, we're going to talk about Ultimate Power and what we've seen so far. So I went ahead and counted it out. We have seen 9 megas from Ultimate Power and Devimon. So going through those megas, we have Puppetmon, Mechasedramon, Piedmon, Ulforce Vidramon, Machinedramon, Shine Greymon, War Greymon, but on the sales sheet it says Black War Greymon. So I'm curious to see what's going on with that pack art, because I don't know what's going on there.
I feel like people aren't really even talking about that. I feel like that's more of a discussion point that people should really be focusing on, because it's supposed to be Black War Greymon, but I really hope we don't see another. Also, looking at the numbers, it wouldn't make sense to see another War Greymon.
Yeah, so from Digimon Card Network, excuse me. The information on the set does list that they will be supporting every color. What I think that means is that they will separate the SRs so that every color gets a little bit of representation. But I'm not sure how that's going to go. And I think there's a lot of assumptions on what color cards are going into that could just be completely wrong. To finish out the list from earlier, we also have Venom Myotismon, or Venom Vamdemon in Japanese, and Dukemon, also known as Gallantmon for English players.
You already bring up Ulforce?
Yes, Ulforce Vidramon. I think we have a lot of dragon cards in this set, and I do not think they will all be in red.
There's no way.
I think there's a lot of people making arguments for all sorts of different cards being red. I think if they were to skew red that hard at this point in the game, red would just gangbuster everybody and it wouldn't be fair. So I'm really hoping they really split these up. I think we could easily see a Dark Master in every color.
Now, hear me out. This is off of complete speculation, but because Yellow has Tsukaimon,
Yeah.
I definitely really hope we see Devimon or Lady Devimon fall into yellow.
Yeah, I think there is a good chance that a one of the lines of the evil Digimon will be yellow. It's either that or Shine Greymon. Obviously, everyone sees Greymon in the name and they start freaking out. But when you look into it, Shine Greymon is actually a holy Digimon.
A light dragon.
Yeah, light dragon. He has the light tag throughout his entire Digivolution line, if I'm not mistaken.
And everything about his Digievolution line is completely different. Where versus at the start, it does look similar to Greymon and it does work similar. But if you see all the other options as it branches out, it definitely does not seem close.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's a dragon really throws people off. But I think if he is an SR, I could see him as the yellow SR, which would be a little disappointing in my eyes because I want Venom Myotismon to be the yellow card.
See, I don't.
Yeah, I could see Venom Myotismon being purple. I don't know about black. I don't see how Venom Myotismon is going to be a card that interacts with blocker. But I could also see Venom Myotismon being yellow, and that would be really spicy.
Gallantmon, or rather, I guess Dukemon, is, I believe, going to be black because he's a virus Digimon, and he's centered around... He has a giant shield. He is a protective type Digimon. We've seen him in media like that.
I feel like, that was my immediate assumption when I saw Gallantmon. I didn't immediately turn to him being in the dragon family. I know Guilmon and Growlmon and even Wargrowlmon all really do look like they would be red cards. But I feel like Gallantmon's going to be black. I don't see how the defender mechanic for black representing the defender mechanic, the blocker mechanic, really makes sense with it just being like an evil color.
See, the thing is, there's always this misconception, and we did it earlier, we applied it, where, say something like Lady Devimon or Devimon, those things, like, there's things that are considered evil Digimon. There is a category that is called evil, but despite that, in different medias across the Digimon franchise, it's been proven that things that are inherently quote-unquote evil are not necessarily evil, and that is just their appearance and their Digimon type.
Yeah, I think it depends how they want to go with this next set. I know we're kind of supposed to be tracking along with the anime. I don't know how the anime is going to really approach evil Digimon at this point. The plant Digimon that they had to fight in the first 3 episodes really was kind of an unknown to me, and they really treated it like Diaboromon almost, fighting this really like unknown evil. So I don't know how we're gonna see new Digimon tackle these like evil demon Digimon.
The other thing I'm really not understanding when people play into it is the idea that black is essentially evil. When I think of evil, I don't think of blockers or things that protect.
Yeah, I don't think of like blocking as a mechanic that you would give something that's evil.
I see purple definitely because you can manipulate discard pile, and I notice a lot, like if you watch different seasons, depending on what mediums you've seen of Digimon, I've seen other evil masters create Digimon, and I definitely believe that's a purple mechanic. And if you look at the Digimon wiki and you look through things like that, of course this could also mean absolutely nothing because source material doesn't always apply. But a lot of the evil masters, or like basically the dark masters in Digimon, like Machine Dramon falls in that.
Yeah, so they all have their own armies, and if of the Dark Lords in the set, it's Piedmon and Machine Dramon that really have like these ties to creation. Like you're creating demons, or Machine Dramon is created from the pieces of other Digimon. I think these fit the archetype of what Purple's trying to do, which is manipulate the discard pile, potentially even reviving things from the dead. I would be really... If Purple is reviving things from the dead, I'm going to love Purple. This is one of my favorite like pet mechanics in other card games. Which is also potentially, if you look into Venom Myotismon, he also has a zombie form. That might be reading into it a little too much.
It really depends, because at this point, all we can base off of is source material and things that we've understood from the series and Digimon in general, because they haven't given anything really to us yet.
Yeah, there's not much to give to us except for names and pictures. I'm really curious to see if it's going to really divide along color lines, what colors get evil Digimon in them, like evil Dark Masters. I really like if green is going to get an SR, if green gets an SR in this set.
I believe it's Puppetmon.
The only card I could see it being Puppetmon. They already have Mushmon and Woodmon, which are the two things that are the starting of his Digivolution line. And Cherrymon is a big-ass tree. Let's be real here.
And besides that, too, Puppetmon in other mediums is not always seen as this evil Digimon.
Yeah, I've definitely had games where I've interacted with Puppetmon, and he's not necessarily evil.
That's just how it works. Because every Digimon, like in what we were saying, just because people consider it evil, just like humans, just because you appear a certain way, does not necessarily mean that is exactly how you play out.
Yeah, like I remember Digimon World, the first game, Myotismon is this Digimon that you save from Skull Greymon, and I forget the evil, I forget the source of the evil in that game, but you save Myotismon from being killed by the darkness.
Cyber Sleuth does that too. In Cyber Sleuth, there's an entire mission where you have essentially the trio. They show up. You have Black War Greymon, you have, I believe, Devimon, and then you also have Myotismon, and they're called in by Digimon seeking glory and justice to fight them, to kill them, because they seem evil.
They seem evil,
and their feelings are hurt.
Yeah, yeah. I think the video games really like to defy expectation on that kind of stuff at times, because they're more of a commentary on society at certain points. Than they are just, playing by our assumptions. But then I also, I think that Black War Greymon, I think if there's a color that's necessarily, evil, I think he has to find his way in there. I don't think I've ever interacted with a black Agumon that wasn't an asshole in the games.
The thing is that the only one I can think of that was not a complete, well, he was an ass, but he wasn't absolutely necessarily evil at all, was the Black War Greymon in Digimon Adventure 02, where he was just essentially manipulated, and he was created, and he was suffering as his existence, and I'm just like, okay, this is extremely sad.
Yeah, I could see Black War Greymon finding his way into a lot of different colors, between red, black, and purple. I have ideas of how he could operate in each of those colors. But I do think he'll either be in black or purple. I think him being in the in the anime, an artificial Digimon could potentially place him into purple. Although him being, War Greymon and being
powerful and
stalwart Digimon means that he could be the opposite of his red counterpart and find his way into black with Defender.
See, it's very fun to try to anticipate these things, because there's so much material to go off of, but there's so little information that they've provided us.
The only thing that we are for sure getting as cards, besides the megas that we've talked about, are Sora and Joe, because this was supposed to be about the time that the Digimon Adventure TV series was going to introduce these characters. And we're going to get them as Tamer cards, because as you see in the backgrounds of the 2-cost Tamer cards, they're in the background of the digital world in the new anime.
Have they introduced the colors for them yet? I mean, we can assume what they are.
I'm assuming that Sora is red and Joe is blue, just because their Digimon are already in the game. That also has me worried that their cards are going to prioritize taking the SR slots in blue and red, where I think Vikemon deserves some time in the sun, because they gave us Plesiamon as the end of Joe's Digivolution line, and if they're going to go with that in the show, then alright, cool. But I like Vikemon. We already have Phoenixmon, so I'm not sure what they were going to do. My little tinfoil hat theory after looking on the Digimon wiki is that for some reason that Piomon can digivolve all the way to Xmon, the Holy Knight, the giant dragon Holy Knight.
I definitely think they're going to bring out the Holy Knights as time goes by.
Yeah, because we're already starting to get some of them.
We just don't know when.
Yeah, I think we're getting the Dark Masters. I could see definitely in the future having a set with a lot of the Holy Knights. And that would be really cool. I mean, I know we're getting Old Force Vidramon and Gallantmon in this set, which are both parts of the Holy Knights. So I'm really curious to see where that goes.
It's definitely interesting to try to anticipate it. I'm just sad because now that really clarifying it and looking into it, I don't think they're going to bring Omnimon Zwart, and that's one of my favorites just because he is basically a derivative of the Knights and not so much a Knight himself because Omnimon already exists. But if they do, I could also see him because in the games and things like that, he plays a defensive spot. He could be in black, but I also don't necessarily believe that could happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know how they would go and including Omnimon Zwart in this. Not in this set. I'm saying in this card game. Omnimon Zwart doesn't really get touched on much in the anime or anything like that.
He's never touched on in general, I believe. He's in games, but that's purely for novelty, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're gonna get Omnimon Zwart in the future. I think it would be a really cool inclusion. Maybe like if we get a Black Metal Garurumon as well, which also is not something that's really touched on in any anime as far as I'm aware.
But see, we say this, but it could also still happen because even though Black Metal Greymon has had mediums, this is also just a key in that there is openings, I believe.
Yeah, I think the inclusion of Black Greymon means that there's definitely hope for Omnimon Zwart in the future. I don't know what Omnimon Zwart would really do. You would probably need to be as impactful as Omnimon.
Even if he was bad, I would buy his cards. He's very nice.
Yeah, he's a really cool looking Digimon. And I think with that, we're actually going to close out this episode. Thanks for listening, everyone. This is a long one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like and please leave a like. And if you have any suggestions in the comments, let us know. Next episode, we'll be talking about more cards from Booster Set 1, going through the rares and the tamers and seeing how our opinions of those cards have come out as we play tested with them.
Like and subscribe, everybody.
Thank you.